spitting distance.
Yeah.
Should have stopped by for some of that virtual reality action.
Yeah.
It might have been better for me to just come hang out with you for a while and then run the game from your place and then head out. With how long I was in traffic, it took me 4 hours to get home.
Wow. Normally like a 3-hour drive.
It's only like 2.5 for me this morning.
Really? You made time then. You were booking it.
Well, I also got pulled over, so.
Well, there you go. Yeah, Bloomington's like 45 minutes for me, maybe.
All right. So, who would like to give a recap?
I can. We were riding on the lightning rail. An airship pulled overhead and dropped a bunch of warforged on. We were fighting them. Eventually, the bottom of the airship opened up, and a warforged titan dropped onto the front of the train. We fired a beam that ripped off the top of the engine car, killing everyone inside. We then took, I don't really know, but like 20 minutes to plan what to do at that point. Elmorn eventually turned into an eggshell giant, and we then attacked the warforged titan. Elmorn tried to grapple him, but it originally fended him off and just started pummeling him. Then he did successfully grapple it while we pelted it with fire and acid. It tried to use a siege wand to kill us, but Elmorn managed to deflect it so that it went up and caused a fireball on the airship, although the airship did survive. Petrie, after a lot of back and forth and Elmorn taking a lot of damage from the Titan, Petrie ran forward and jumped into the engine car, where he saw a bunch of normal-sized warforged and the train controls. He used spirit guardians to cause this whirling sphere of dark angelic spirits that were tearing through the warforged. Eivar ran forward and jumped into the engine car, and then Kolmar did. Elmorn smited the warforged titan at that point, using 2 action points to make it work, critically stabbing it with a javelin. But even with the critical, the warforged titan was still in pretty good shape. Petrie then used his magic sword of the masochist, I don't know what it's called, to
the final blade.
One of the warforged, injuring himself in the process with these unhealable wounds. He then fell over in ecstasy at the pain he was feeling. Eivar took over the train controls at that point since all the warforged were dead and was fighting the air elemental for control, resulting in a pretty shaky ride, and the train was still on the conductor stones underneath it, but there's a possibility of it going off of them. Kolmar even spoke to me at one point asking if there was something he could do, and that minor distraction was enough for me to lose, to have to fight for control again against the air elemental, and I nearly lost it. Elmor threw the warforged titan off the train as the train started to speed up again. The warforged titan regained its footing and brought its axe down, severing the final passenger car and all the cargo cars. All of the people who had been riding the train who weren't killed outright were rushed into the last 2 of the passenger cars, I think for the most part. Some of them may have been in the cargo cars. So a lot of people wound up getting left behind when the final passenger car was severed. What else was it? I think that was pretty much it. That's all I remember.
Mm-hmm.
The airship detached from the engine and went back to where the cargo car was.
Yeah, and that airship looked pretty shaky after Elmorn's hitting it with the siege wand. So yeah, after the train begins pulling away, Elmorn and Marthow are still outside of the engine cart. So what are you guys doing right now?
I am just doing nothing but grabbing onto the controls.
Marthow sees that Eivar has got his hands full, and he's not. He saw kind of what happened when Kolmar tried to speak, so he's not going to attempt the same thing.
Wait, we're outside of the train car, right?
Right. You guys. So Marthow is flying alongside of it, and Elmorn, you are on top of it.
So I mean, we left this thing behind now, though, right? It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by now, the energy that has been keeping you large has begun to fade, and it's kind of steaming off of you. And as that's happening, you're shrinking in size. The eggshell armor plate that has surrounded you is starting to crumble and fall, and you see as you come to your normal size, you feel a wave of almost nausea and weakness, and you kind of fall to your knees, and you catch yourself with your arms. And as you do that, the yoke on your forehead falls off, and Egg's face kind of returns, and some of the crumblings of eggshell gather around him to form his arms and legs. And he has his one arm on his, like, over his belly, kind of, and you see him just like huffing, like, and he's just kind of like reaching out to you, like, universal sign for help.
All right. I regain. I try my best to steady myself and steel myself so I don't feel nauseous and dizzy anymore. And I gather up Egg and put him in his tiny bed inside of my pouch. I just have like a swath of cloth. That's like his little bed inside. So it's just like this big cloth glob in my pack, and I just set him in there.
You can tell Egg is appreciative.
And I salute him.
He goes to salute you, but then he kind of just falls asleep, and you can see a bubble coming from his mouth as he begins doing his little egg snores.
Ew.
And I will, and Marthow, so he doesn't know anything about Eivar at this point, and although I'm sure I've seen that the train kind of rocked a bit. So going in, he's going to, Marthow's going to go down into the front cabin. And
well, you guys also know, because the train basically stopped, and you do know that Eivar, Petrie, and Kolmar all went into the hole, and not too long after that is when the train started up again. So you have a sense that they probably are the reason that the train is moving now.
Are we
yeah, but it rocked, right? We would have seen it rock like
yeah, it's been rocking the entire time basically, but there were a couple of moments where it was especially shaky.
Is anyone piloting
Kolmar
or Petrie, or are we just like not doing that? Or can I at least put a suggestion out there? Kolmar would tell Marthow not to disturb Eivar if he were to enter the cart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Kolmar would tell Marthow that.
So there you go. That explains how you know.
Yeah. Kolmar would, in his kind of gruff voice, be like, "Don't bother the gnome. He needs to drive this thing. We're gonna kill us all if you say anything to him. Don't even look at him."
So Marthow would just kind of shrug, and Marthow would then check some of the other carts. He would start working his way back from the front to kind of survey the damage and see. He's not really a healer, but he would kind of survey and see what's going on to see if there's anything he could do.
So actually, the door to the engine cart is locked. So if you wanted to do that, you would need to go out through the top. But once everybody enters the engine cart, only a few moments after that, there's like a magical kind of flash over the door, and then it opens, and you see somebody that you don't recognize, but is wearing the uniform of House Orien enter, and he kind of holds the door open, and Brevan walks in with the warforged prisoner. And he looks at all of you with almost like a sense of awe, like, and he says, "Elmorn, it was like you were Duldorn himself fighting that Titan. I can't even comprehend how you guys were able to do what you did."
Well, you may not be able to comprehend it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It wasn't any fun.
It didn't seem like it was, but I've never seen anybody fight so ferociously.
Do what I must.
Well, I've counted up the bodies and those that we were able to save. Unfortunately, a good number of people were still in the carts that were left behind, but there's nothing that we could have done to stop that. I say every person that we managed to save is a blessing. And then he turns to the warforged and kicks his legs out from under him to force him to kneel, and then gives him a solid armored elbow right to the temple. I suspect that we're going to want to question this one to figure out exactly what it was that happened here today.
Am I present in this interaction?
Yeah.
Is there anything that we should take due note of when questioning warforged? They are different than most creatures.
They are naturally much more difficult since they don't really have a sense of pain in the way that we know it. But there are other methods. And then at that point, the House Orien person notices that it's a small gnome driving the cart rather than one of the other couriers or engineers. And
just boring down.
Yeah. And he just like almost screams, and he's like, "No!" And he runs over and he grabs the reins or the mechanism or whatever from Eivar and says, I have it from here, gnome. Thank you."
Oh, thank God. I have to pee. This is going to be my only chance to ever pee off the front of a moving lightning rail. So I'm going to climb up onto the roof and go over to the front and pee.
Give me a dexterity roll to avoid splashback.
That's not that good.
All right, you get a little bit on your leg.
That would be a 9.
So yeah, the warforged is kind of it just kind of looks blank with its metallic, emotionless face. It just has kind of a look of stoicism, and it's kind of looking down at the ground. Its arms manacled behind it and kneeling.
Brevan, what are these other techniques you speak of? I'll do whatever it takes to get the answers I need.
Well, if I were with the other Sentinel Marshals, we could put him into a zone of truth. We could attempt to use divination magic to read his thoughts, at least those on the surface.
Zone of truth. Only I hadn't expended myself in the previous battle. I could perhaps create one myself.
Well, unfortunately, we're still probably almost a full day away from the nearest train station. So we have a long ride to figure out what we're going to do with this one in the meantime.
Not a problem.
How long of a ride do we have? Sorry.
So it was probably about a 13-hour ride from the station that you left. And this happened probably about 2 hours into the trip when this happened. So it's still about 11 hours away.
Okay. And I mean, I would need to get my spell slots back to use that, right?
No, you wouldn't have enough time.
No, I'm saying I would need to rest in order to do it. Like, do the long rest.
I'm sorry, what?
Never mind. I was just saying I don't have any spell slots, and I'll need the long rest before I can get them back. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if you guys wanted to just try and rest, you are all thoroughly exhausted and could use a sleep.
I still have a couple old tricks left up my sleeve. Warforged, tell me your name. My name's Mark. Nice to meet you.
It just remains silent.
I'm going to cast Charm on it. I'm going to try to charm it.
Okay. Let me pull up its stats and then I'll roll.
And Eivar comes back and says, "No, they say don't piss into the wind. Well, I have discovered a corollary to that."
So the warforged remains with its look of blank expression, but it says, I am Warforged designate Scimitar.
Warforged designate Scimitar?
His name's Scimitar.
Like the sword?
It just continues to look blank.
He asked you a question. Where's my...
I can, tell me, what were you guys doing here? And then I cast another charm person on it.
Okay.
And I'm going to use an action point to make it roll at disadvantage.
Okay. So the Warforged tilts its head a bit and says, as I told you before, we sought the relic, the schema, as ordered by the Lord of Blades.
Ask him what the schema would look like.
Yes, what Short Stuff said. What does this schema look like? Would you know it if you saw it?
Designate scimitar was not given that information. Designate scimitar was given one order: secure the train by any means necessary.
Well, we have a letter to search the portion of the train we have to see if we can find a schema here. If it wasn't left behind, that is.
I wonder. Martha turns his back to the warforged and he pulls out of his pack the box. Is it motionless in his hands? The box from which you recovered from the cargo earlier.
Yeah, it's just an inert metal box.
Is there any kind of locking mechanism on it, or is it that?
Yeah, it's a pretty complex lock mechanism, but it is locked.
If only. Alas, he's been gone so long, yet it's been so short. And I can't recall his name, but only if our...
A brief look of sadness crosses over Kolmar's face, but he makes sure to hide it to prevent anybody from noticing. And he says, well, Fenris may be gone, but I've picked up a few tricks. I might be able to open the box.
I would be most appreciative of this. Do your magic, as I know one who is one with the grease and the glue can.
So let me just make sure. All right, so Kolmar pulls out a couple of picks and a small mirror that can reflect light into the mechanism, and he begins going to work on the lockbox to try and open it.
I'm going to stand up on a seat so I can see down and watch what he's doing. And backseat drive.
So you can hear Kolmar curse under his breath as one of his picks snaps in the lock. And then you also hear some kind of mechanism within the box begin to whir and grind. And Kolmar says, "God damn it. This thing seems like it's adapting to the picks I'm using. It's like it's moving in anticipation. Every time I try to move something out of the way, something else gets in the way."
What do you know about this box, warforged?
It is a box.
Then what do you know?
It is a box.
I'm too tired for this shit.
So at that point, Brevan steps in and says, all warforged are marked with a personal mark. And then he points to the thing on the warforged forehead, which you notice is a strange design that seems to have a very faint glow to it. And he says, that is the warforged Gulra. each one of them, it's their personal mark, like their name. All of them that have ever been created have this, and each one that has been created, there should be a record of its service kept with House Cannith. So even if this warforged is less than forthcoming with information regarding the Lord of Blades and this whole excursion, we can at least find out where it came from and how it may have gotten into this in league with the Lord of Blades. Unfortunately, I can't speak with any of my contacts in House Cannith until we get to this train station.
I'd ask it one more thing. Warforged, you know of the day of mourning.
The warforged looks up from the ground and meets you right in its eye, right in the eyes, and you see the cold kind of. It's almost like a lifelessness beyond the lenses of its eyes, and it says, "Designate scimitar was there."
You were there? Where? What did you see? What happened?
I heard an explosion and took cover. Then the land was covered in darkness as if caught in a great dust storm. Only it wasn't dust. When I rose, there were no more living.
So why does the Lord of Blades want this schemer?
Designate Scimitar was not given that information. Information is strictly controlled. Only those with need to know are given access to it.
So what was your job here on this train?
To secure it by any means necessary.
But if you didn't know what it looked like, how were you going to secure it?
Another Warforged designate would come in and examine the train once it was secure.
Oh, you were here to secure the train.
Wait a goddamn second, Eivar. What do you mean, none alive? How would you know that? How would you know none lived through the day of mourning?
I did not say none were alive. I said when I stood up, those around me were dead.
And where were you?
All living creatures around me were dead.
And where were you?
Other Warforged designates seemed unharmed in the blast.
And where exactly were you when you rose? Is a city? Is a state? English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Warforged designate's memory is not completely intact. Some moments of that day are missing or foggy at best. Brevan steps in and says, if it was an official mission or if there was some kind of particular battalion that this Warforged was assigned to, we can uncover that. So long as it wasn't a covert mission by any of the Five Nations, then there should be some kind of public record that, or if not accessible to the general public, at least as a Sentinel Marshal, I would be able to gain access to that information.
More waiting. God damn it.
Well, how many people?
I turn away.
How many people? How many? I guess. How many would openly employ the use of warforged within the Five Nations? Would that not be kind of a rare thing that people may not want others to know about?
So warforged were openly used as weapons of war. They received recognition as sentient creatures that were afforded all rights and legal recognition as any other person living within the Five Nations. But prior to that, they were basically considered property. They weren't considered to really have souls or anything, and it wasn't like using warforged was some kind of disgraceful or shameful thing. They were necessary for many armies within the battles of the Five Nations to bolster the forces, because there were so many casualties and because the war was so bloody and it went on for over 100 years. And warforged probably were developed within the last 30.
Okay.
So while warforged are rare, relatively rare compared to the general population, that's only because warforged, it's now illegal to create new warforged because warforged are not able to procreate on their own. They're created in some kind of secret House Cannith process, utilizing something called a creation forge. But so, and then there were many warforged that were destroyed during the last war. So those that survived from that are the only ones that are basically left.
Gotcha.
So, hey, Marthow, where did you get this box?
Prior to the Warforged Titan incident, which I'm quite shaken from, I ran to the back of the train and I kind of found I was just trying to get away, and I stumbled upon this and I picked it up. I was drawn to it, and it pulsed in my hands, and hearing the screaming and the clashing and the ripping of metal, I decided that it was probably not the best time to investigate as to what this might be. So I shoved it in my pack and I headed back towards you guys, so we could, rather than sitting in the back of the train. But yes, I found it in one of the cargo holes in one of the cars that are now separated off.
Yeah, that makes sense. It didn't actually occur to me to start looting immediately as soon as the battle started, but now that you bring it up, that was the smart thing to do.
It hasn't failed me yet.
But it occurs to me that well, someone alive on this train might actually think they own that box. But somebody alive or dead on this train might have a key to that box. Or the key might have been left behind.
in character, Elmorn is pouting right now, so he's not talking to anyone. He's in a corner. But out of character, good idea, Kurt.
Yes. So there's a distinct probability that at least 50% chance that the key or has perished with its owner, since we've only been able to save roughly half the people. I'm assuming that everybody knows that at this point. Like Brevan's has Brevan mentioned to the party that there's about half the people have been saved?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a 50% chance of actually having the key, if a key exists. Any markings on this tin that seem to stick out, or kind of design of the lock, if not on the tin itself?
Actually, yeah, there is something recognizable. Do you have Arcana?
Whether I have it or not, I can roll it.
No, if you don't have Arcana, just straight at intelligence check.
Hold on a sec, I'm really chugging here. I do not have Inferno. That didn't do good at all. It's like a 6.
Okay. Eivar, do you want to roll a check to see if you recognize it?
18.
Okay. You do recognize it. So I'm going to send you...
Say what again? English, motherfucker.
Well, it's a symbol. The symbol has something to do with the Tower of the 12. Although I don't know what the Tower of the 12 is.
The destination. Nobody tell you anything.
So the Tower of the 12 is a special school, congress, college, research center for magical development in magical arts, and it is sponsored as a collaborative between each of the 12 dragon-marked houses. And so only those that have some kind of privilege within one of the houses, or those that actually possess dragon marks, are allowed to go there and to learn and do research in regards to advancement in magical arts and knowledge.
Well, that makes sense, Dan. I mean, presumably we're looking for somebody else who's affiliated with this tower. So we can either ask around or start looking through one of the bodies who looks like a bit of a scholar. At that point, the driver, the person that's driving the cart, actually looks back and says, "Wait, did you pull that from the cargo hold?" No.
Well, if you did, it might be that it's just being delivered.
Yes, cargo hold.
It may not actually have anybody here that's... its owner. The cargo hold was used for not just to hold the possessions of passengers, but also as kind of a mail delivery, I suppose you could call it.
Are there records on the packages on the train?
Unfortunately,
I imagine there's some inventory.
Unfortunately, the manifest was in the cargo hold. There would be a copy, but it's at the train station.
I see.
They have a copy of the expected transport.
Well, that's most unhelpful.
So Brevan looks at you, Marthow, with the box and says, it was quick thinking on your part to grab that, but we do have an agreement that if that is not the schema that the warforged is looking for, it's going to return to its rightful owner. Correct, Marthow?
Yes, yes, of course. I have no use for this if it is not the schema. Besides, if it is the schema, that makes it evidence.
Exactly. I'm glad that we have an understanding there.
Yes, yes, I have enough things at the handsome mansion. I don't need another box or trifle.
And then Kolmar curses under his breath, and he's like, well, that would explain why I couldn't open the lock. It's a freaking magic lock.
I thought your business was magic.
Well, yeah, if I'm expecting it, but it just looks like a regular lock.
I feel like Petrie would try to use his sword or whatever, that gem that like breaks inanimate objects. I feel like he would try and use it on the box.
He would if he still had it.
Oh, he lost that?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was with his last sword, which, aged 100 years, and the magic of the gem kind of fizzled. It could be recharged. It's still at the Handsome Mansion, but
Convenient. Now we can't see what's in the box.
What's in the box? Well, I should point out that McCormick always said, if there's lots of bodies lying around, even if you can't find the key to the magic box, you can find coins.
Brevan turns to the small gnome and says, are you really suggesting that we desecrate those that were just killed here today?
No, I was suggesting that we collect coins from their bodies. Where was your mind going?
That would dishonor their bodies, and also what of their families?
I don't understand the question.
That money belongs to...
Standard operating procedure in the whole time I've been working as a mercenary has been loot the body.
Elmorn just groans audibly.
With respect, gnome, Eivar, is it? I would prefer that if that is your standard operating procedure, you do that while a Sentinel Marshal is not present, especially the head of the Sentinel Marshals.
Fine, you stay up here.
Brevan is exasperated, but he's too tired to argue. It's clear that he has a lot more battle damage than he did when you last saw him, so he probably had to fight warforged that were still trying to overtake the train in the back of the train. So he's also pretty tired and pretty beat up. And he also has this expression like, all right, so this is the group I expected, not the super amazing group that took on the Warforged Titan. This is the one I remember.
Elmorn is just as embarrassed of Eivar as Brevan is.
So Brevan suggests to the group we should find a place for this Warforged and bind him so that he can't be any danger during this trip. I also suggest that at least one person watch him at all times.
Does he really need to be alive for this person, whoever you're contacting, to recognize him? He is a murderer after all.
Believe me, Elmorn, I would love nothing more than to decapitate this Warforged and leave its body to the dirt outside the train. But we do need it alive to be able to get the information that we seek. After that, we'll let justice run its course.
Do as you will.
No, well.
Where do we want to put him? Not a lot of space left. We could maybe find one of the private cars, like the one we were in, and lock him inside. Although, Teddy, I don't know how easy it'd be for him to like climb out a window.
Perhaps the engine room is the best place for him.
Same problem, a big hole in the roof. And he could kill the driver.
That's actually not a bad idea, though, to put him in the private carts. There's only the one remaining, but I think that would be the best place for him to keep him out of sight of the survivors. They've suffered enough. They don't need to see a reminder of the ones that slaughtered them.
We can
I would also...
watching him.
What's that?
Take shifts watching him.
Yes, that would be ideal. Also, I could use some help. I don't think leaving these bodies about is good for anybody. And so perhaps the private carts would also be a good place to store the remains of the departed.
Well, I'm relatively less beaten up than the rest of you, so I can take 1 or 2 turns watching the Warforged. I mean, the rest would be nice and all, but I don't think I need it quite as much as Elmorn.
It's true. I do need rest.
And Kolmar says, yeah, I'm beat. And Peter's like, sure, I could watch that Warforged the whole time. I don't need any rest. I'm Petrie. And he holds his sword up like, yeah, as Petrie does.
I assume he's still bleeding.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like he raises the sword up and there's like a new trickle of blood coming out from under his armor.
Yeah. So, and he seems to be just fine with it. He's just kind of not even worried. Just strange because he's losing a good amount of blood.
Elmorn has to go to bed because Emiliano has to leave.
And apparently Dustin does too.
Oh, shit. All right.
All right, so this is a good stopping point anyways. So next session we'll start at the train station you guys boarding. Hey, Dustin. So I was just saying that this is a good stopping point since Ano needs to leave. I said Ano this time, right?
I think. I don't know. I didn't hear it.
So he needs to leave, and next time we'll pick up at the train station. Everybody, welcome to level 7.
Here.
Oh, yeah. Level 7.
Yeah.
Hey,
Level 7. Woo! Oh, Dustin says hi, babe. Do we have anything to drink? Other than that?
Just beer.
I don't have any beer. Do I? All right.
Well, have fun entertaining your guests.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Time to enter.
All right.
Time to enter the shadow realm.
So it seems like we're going to be off for a couple weeks because Kurt, you said you're traveling. Dustin, you're traveling.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So then,
You thinking emails?
Yeah, maybe like an email type would be all right.
that's not a bad idea. To do the train station and everything via email.
Yeah, like whatever you think would work best. I wouldn't be opposed to an email thing. I'm going to be sitting on the train a lot in Europe, so I've got like 13 or 14 hours of train time that I'm looking at, in addition to like 8-hour flights. So I'm going to have a lot of time to do things.
How long will you be?
All right.
I gotta go. See you guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
How long are you going to be in Europe?
I'm leaving next Friday night, and I'm coming back October 1st. So it's going to be 7, 8, 9 days.
Yeah, if you're
8 or 9 days.
sucks to go to Europe for like 2 days and come back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, thank God. No, this is for pleasure. So I get to this is like my big vacation of the year. I try to do at least one a year.
My first job out of law school was I worked for a couple really big firms, but this was one of the big ones, and they used to send me like all over the world, and people were like, "Oh, that must be so great." No, it's like, oh, you get to fly to Calcutta, and it's like you fly to Calcutta. It takes like a day to fly there, and then you get off. You're in the airport. You get in a cab. You fly. You go to an office building that looks exactly like any American office building. I'm a junior attorney, so they sit me usually in like a windowless, unair conditioned room with stacks of papers for me to like read and go through and mark, and then get back in a cab, go back to the airport, and fly home. And it's like you'd be there for like maybe 2 days.
Sounds miserable.
Yeah, I hate business travel because it's never fun. Unless you can like schedule 3 days to do something, it's always just a nightmare. And I discovered in my hotel in Calcutta, I was very stunned by this. On the room service menu, hamburgers. I was like, this is India.
Wow.
Not a very sacred hotel.
Yeah. So it looks. Go ahead. What?
I was going to ask if that was in northern or southern India.
Calcutta's. I've actually been all over India, so, and you can generally find hamburgers in every major hotel. So there's that. In southern India, though, you get monkeys. That was my favorite part of southern India. I was in this like little town where people were like, everybody, it was like 2 in the afternoon, And I'm like, we're just like out walking, and like every shop closed. And I was like, what is? I thought it was like maybe like siesta, like in the shops. At least in some places, the shops will close because everybody's just going to take like a little break. But every shop closed, and then like over the course of like 15 minutes, there was just like a horde of monkeys. And they were like super demanding, like they were like they were coming in, like reaching into people's pockets while they were clinging on to you. Like they wanted food. They were there to get food, and they knew somebody had it.
Yeah, so no wonder the shops were all closed.
Right. That's exactly why. Like they knew this is apparently the time of day when the monkeys wake up or something.
That's funny.
Chimps or like orangutans or?
These are, I don't know the exact type, but these were like little, like 1 foot tall, proper monkeys with like tails.
Gotcha.
That would be a sight to see.
They get really, really mad when you don't give them anything. So like people were looking at us out on the street like we were crazy. Luckily nobody got bit, but the monkeys tried to bite.
Yeah, I hear that is definitely not fun, getting bit by a monkey.
Well, I just assume the shots alone.
So this is hard to say, but looks like you've contracted a new form of AIDS.
Right.
Goddamn monkeys!
Right. Also, I'm afraid you're in quarantine now, so you can't leave India.
God, that's awful.
I mean, actually.